Let's dive into one of the juiciest stories to ever tease the seams of history and myth. The saga of Pope Joan, the alleged she-pope, who shook the Catholic Church so hard they may have invented a testicle throne just to avoid repeating her reign. If you haven't heard of her, buckle up because this is a wild ride through love, deception, power, and possibly the most awkward labor scene in history. Pope Joan, if she ever existed, was supposedly born in Mainz, Germany, or England, depending on who's telling the tale. Her early life is a classic setup for drama. A girl who's smarter than society allows her to be. Some accounts claim she disguised herself as a man, taking the name John Anglicus, to sneak into male-dominated circles of learning. Others suggest her motivation was far juicier: to follow her lover, a wandering scholar. Yup, it's a classic tale of forbidden romance and ambition wrapped in medieval intrigue. So there she was, rocking the robes, the pseudonym, and the brains, climbing the church's ranks faster than you can say Hail Mary. Her sharp intellect and charisma made her a standout, and apparently, nobody thought to question why Brother John wasn't hitting the communal showers. Joan's ascent to the papacy, allegedly under the name Pope John VIII, was the stuff of medieval Netflix dramas. She charmed her way through the ranks, eventually landing the top gig, the papal throne. Imagine it. A woman in a man's world, pulling off the ultimate hustle. She supposedly served for 2 years, handling affairs of state and church like a boss. The catch? She might have been hiding more than just her gender. Some versions of the tale claim Joan carried on a secret relationship while Pope, and things took a turn when she became pregnant. Cue the dramatic music. Here's where the story gets almost too dramatic to be true. During a public procession in Rome, Pope Joan allegedly went into labor. Right there, on the street. Imagine the crowd's confusion as the Pope's divine inspiration turned into cries of childbirth. Accounts differ on what happened next. Some say Joan died in childbirth. Others suggest the mob turned on her in a fit of betrayal-fueled rage. Either way, it's not a happy ending. The church, humiliated, supposedly erased her from the official record and altered procession routes to avoid the infamous spot. Adding more intrigue, in the 16th century, Siena Cathedral featured a bust of Joan among other pontiffs. This was removed after protests in 1600. The fact that her image was once publicly displayed suggests that her story may have carried some level of historical acknowledgement before being forcefully scrubbed from memory. Here's where things get spicy. To ensure no future she-pope slipped through the cracks, the church allegedly introduced the sedia stercoraria, or testicle throne. This peculiar chair, with its strategic hole in the seat, allowed a cardinal to, let's say, confirm the new pope's male credentials. After the check, the examiner would declare, "Duos habet una pendants." He has two, and they hang well. Subtle, right? But here's the kicker. The Vatican insists the throne's purpose was purely ceremonial and not related to any scandal. Sure. If Pope Joan is pure fiction, why introduce such a bizarre ritual at all? The timing's suspicious, to say the least. Critics argue that the story of Pope Joan was likely fabricated as satire or propaganda. The earliest written accounts appeared centuries after her supposed reign, with no contemporary evidence to back them up. But the persistence of her legend, coupled with the introduction of the testicle throne, makes you wonder, could the church really have been so humiliated they scrubbed her from history? Whether Pope Joan was real or not, her story exposes the fragility of power structures that rely on secrecy and exclusion. The church's tolerance for scandalous popes, from schemers to outright criminals, only makes their vehement denial of Joan's existence more suspect. Why is a woman in power more shameful than popes who openly fathered children or plunged the church into corruption? Joan's tale endures because it's a perfect storm of audacity, scandal, and mystery. Whether she's a cautionary tale, a feminist icon, or a medieval urban legend, her story keeps us questioning what history chose to preserve and what it buried. So, next time you hear about the testicle throne, think of Pope Joan, the she-pope who may or may not have rocked the Vatican to its core, leaving behind a legacy of awkward chair rituals, which might make the new pope wish that he had just stayed a bishop forever. The vanished busts, and one of history's most enduring mysteries.